Hi guys, so I made this quick video to go over exactly what proteins are found on the surface of blood cells and why that plays a factor in terms of blood typing, but also in terms of who can donate blood and who can receive blood from different people. So let's start with some terms that you already saw in notes. We're going to go ahead and define antigen, protein, and then the concept of antigens, antibodies, which are both proteins, and then we're going to define the concept of agglutination. So your red blood cells, like many other cells, have little proteins that stick off of their surface. These proteins help with various functions. Okay, so these proteins found on the surface of a red blood cell are known as antigens. We can't just call them proteins. Proteins is a very generic term for anything made up of amino acids. So lots of different proteins are going to have individual names. So when they're found on the surface of a red blood cell and they are responsible for identifying your blood type, they are called an antigen. And again, you went over this in notes from the last class, okay? So an antigen is a type of protein. And we're going to say it's found on red blood cells. RBCs is how we abbreviate red blood cells. And it determines a person's blood type. So if you are type A blood, type B blood, type O blood, or type AB blood. Now, antibodies, that's another thing with these. All of the words start with the letter A, so that makes it a little bit more confusing. Antibodies are little wide-shaped proteins that are found floating in the blood itself, like in the liquid part of the blood. So they're called antibodies. And they are found in the blood, like the liquid part of the blood, so the plasma. And they're actually a part of your body's immune response. They're part of your immune system. And their job is to recognize and to bind to other proteins, to antigens specifically. So they recognize and bind, so they're kind of like handcuffs to antigens. Now, when your antibodies recognize and bind an antigen, they do it as a really massive group, so they all bind together. And this produces a clump, so a large collection of both cells, antigens, and antibodies, and that is known as agglutination. Okay, so this clump is made up of your cells. Those cells are going to have the antigens on them, and then the antibodies, and then more cells with more antibodies, until you end up with this massive clump of cells and antibodies all moving together or floating together in your blood. Okay, so that's what agglutination is. So it's a reaction between the antigen on the cell and the antibody. and it produces a clump. And actually, this is a great thing because if it weren't for the fact that antibodies and antigens naturally clump up when they correspond with each other, we wouldn't be able to blood type. So this is the basis of our ability to tell someone's blood type. Okay, so let's talk about our ABO blood system. So the blood system that we work with is called the ABO system. And it's broken down. We're going to talk about the type of blood a person can have, what antigens we're going to find on their red blood cells, and then what antibodies their body is going to make in the plasma or the serum of their blood. So something you're going to notice is the blood type is, for a lot of these, the blood type is going to match the antibody found on the red blood cell. There is one exception, and we'll talk about that. So if you have type A blood, it means that your red blood cells, your red blood cells make antigen A. So on the surface of your red blood cells, the antigen they make is the type A antigen. Okay? We'll do the antibodies last. If you have type B blood, it means that your blood cells have the B antigen on their surface. So again, the blood type and the antigen match. Now, if you have type AB blood, literally, on your red blood cell, you have both the A antigen and the B antigen, which is why they have type AB blood. They literally get both. Okay, so the antigen here would be A and B. Now, the exception to the rule is type O blood. If you have type O blood, your blood cells don't have any blood typing antigens. So you have a naked blood cell. It doesn't have type A, it doesn't have type B. So here we're going to put neither A nor B. Now, why is that? Well, that leads us to talking about our antibodies. Now, you know that if the antibody and the antigen match, it's going to cause clumping. But you don't want clumps to just be floating around in your veins and in your arteries. That will cause issues, kind of like a blood clot. So your body is really smart. Your body makes the opposite antibody to the type of antigen you have on your red blood cell. So the people who are type A blood, they're type A blood because they have the A antigen on their red blood cell. But if their bodies made antibody A, that would result in clumping. So instead, what that person's body is going to do is it's going to make an antibody that is the opposite. They're going to make antibody B, because that will not produce clumping. Opposites do not clump. If they are alike, they clump, but if they're opposite, they don't clump. Which means that for the person with type B blood, who has the B antigen on their red blood cells, they are going to make antibody A. They're going to make the opposite to the antigen they have. Now, AB is a little tricky because if you have type AB blood, you have both the A antigen and the B antigen. So they're not going to make antibody A or antibody B. Okay, so here we're going to write neither anti-A nor B. And since type O is a naked blood cell, it doesn't have, in the sense of antigens for blood type, it doesn't have any of the A or B antigens. It means that person's blood will actually make both antibodies. They will make both antibody A, and antibody B. So both A, anti-A, and B. There we go. All right. So this is where the blood system comes from. If you have type A blood, you have the A antigen on your red blood cells, but your body makes antibody B. If you have type B blood, you have the B antigen on your red blood cells, but your body makes antibody A. If you have type AB blood, then your red blood cells make both antigen A and antigen B, but your body makes neither antibody A nor antibody B in your actual blood, so in the liquid part of your blood. If you have type O blood, then you have neither antigen A nor antigen B on your red blood cells, but your body makes both antibody A and antibody B in the plasma, the liquid part of your blood. So that leads us to talk about blood donation. We have to be mindful of who can give blood to whom, and also who can get or receive blood from whom. At the end of the day, we don't want to mix blood types that can cause clumping. So we have to be really careful, not just about making sure that we've matched the correct antigen, but also the correct antibody. Okay, so if the person has type A blood, they can give or donate blood to another person with type A, but they can also donate or give blood to someone with type AB blood. If the person has type A blood, they can get or receive blood from someone who is type A. That makes perfect sense. But they can also receive blood from someone who is type O. Remember, if you're type AB, you have both the A and the B antigen on your blood cell, so you're fine. If you have type O blood, you don't have either of those. So again, if you were to donate blood to someone with type A, it's not going to cause any issues because your blood coming in is not going to clump with their antibodies because you don't have any antigens for them to clump with. Type B is going to follow a very similar pattern. If you have type B blood, you can give to someone with B, or you can give to someone with AB. You can receive from someone with B, so the exact same blood type as yourself, but you can also receive from someone with O. If you have type AB blood, you can only give to another AB person. You cannot give to anybody else if you have type AB blood. But type AB is really lucky in the sense that they can receive or get blood from a type A person, a type B person, a type AB person, or a type O person. Again, A and B, AB people make both of those antigens. So it's fine to receive blood from just a type A or just a type B or an AB person. Remember, O blood has no antigens, so O blood is not going to harm or clump in any form or fashion in a AB person's body. Now, type O is the opposite. Type O can give blood to everyone, A, B, AB, and O. But type O people can only receive blood from another type O. So for this reason, type AB people or type AB blood is known as the universal recipient. They can receive blood from all the other blood types. And type O is known as the universal donor. They can give blood to any of the other blood types. Now, there's another part of your blood group that can cause some issues, and that is known as the Rh factor. So many of you are familiar with your, like for example, you know that you are A positive or A negative. So that positive or negative, that's a completely different protein, and it's known as the rhesus factor or the Rh factor. So let's talk about that for a quick second. So the Rh factor, the Rh stands for rhesus because it was found for the first time in rhesus monkeys. Actually, let me write this properly. The H is always lowercase. So the rhesus factor is another antigen. Some people refer to it as antigen D. And you either carry it or you don't. So no in between. You can't half carry it. You can't have half of a plus sign, or you know what I mean? So either you have it or you don't have it. Now, the people that do carry this rhesus factor are said to be Rh positive, which means that the opposite is true. If you don't have it, then you are said to be Rh negative. Okay, so why is this important? It's important because it's one more thing that can cause issues if someone were to donate blood to the wrong rhesus factor. Okay, so here's how this part works. If you are Rh positive, you can get blood from someone who is Rh positive or Rh negative. It doesn't matter. But if you are Rh negative, you can only receive blood from someone who is also negative.